Hey guys, this is Yoda. This is my guide for a new dungeon coming in for War Within Season 2, Operation Floodgate. This dungeon has quite a few heal checks, so be ready for that. We're going to start off by heading right up here. A lot of groups may choose to go this way, but I find going right here to be a very good route. Watch out for this patrol. I'm a demon hunter, so I'm going to imprison it. You can just like run fast past it, but if you do that, some groups may ninja pull. A lot of groups on PTR, by the way, are doing this pull with the boss. In my opinion, it's kind of going to be really risky to do that, especially early season when not everyone knows what's going on. So I'm going up to this Blood Warper. The Blood Warper is like the main mob in this area, or in this pull at least. He casts Blood Blast, which is a bolt at the tank, and he also does this cast Warp Blood. So as you can see, it's doing massive damage to the group and applying a heal absorb over time. This is the heal check that I was talking about. In the first pull of the dungeon, almost everyone is going to have cooldowns, so it's pretty chill. These Dark Fuse hyenas and soldiers are not really doing anything except hitting the tank. The hyenas have like some buff where they have a higher attack speed the more of them there are in the pull, but in the first pull of the dungeon, usually you'll be chill. So I just pull up to the Blood Warper here, kill the Blood Warper, and then we move on, I believe, to the boss. I tag some contractors and pull the boss. So this boss is very similar to the first boss of Miss in some ways. So it comes with 4 mechadrones, sorry. The idea is to kill all 4 mechadrones before she casts Kill a Block Barrier. So Kill a Block Barrier puts a shield on her, and she also starts pulsing AoE damage. Once you kill all the drones, however, she enters her intermission phase by casting Jumpstart, where she pulses AoE damage and takes additional damage. So it's very similar to the Mist first boss, except it has way more mechanics. So these 4 ads are going to be permanently casting Shoot, which doesn't do that much damage at random people. They also cast Doomstorm, which is baited on people, and they fly out, dropping some swirlies, so don't stand in that. Just was a tank hit called Electro Crush, just use a cooldown for that. And this Sonic Boom is aimed at a person. And also there's a kick. These ads like randomly cast Maximum Distortion. There's no way to tell which one is going to cast it. Just be ready to like click on it and kick. Or you can have all of your group focus one different one, and then whoever's mob it is just kicks. So this is the Sonic Boom. We'll watch it again. It's targeting the mage here. It silences you, by the way. So if you're a caster, it's kind of annoying. You kind of have to bait it out and then dodge it. If you're a melee, you can bait it or get knocked by it and then charge the boss if you have a charge skill that isn't affected by silence. Overall, I would say in this phase, mostly focus on aiming the Doomstorms, like not away, so this doesn't happen, basically, so the mob isn't flying out. By the way, this is what happens when the Maximum Distortion goes off. Just goes off and keeps knocking you and pulsing damage, but just make sure, especially if you have a range interrupt, you're watching out for those kicks. So once the ads die, the boss enters the Jumpstart phase. So basically, beat the DPS check. We never got Kill a Block Barrier. And the boss will start casting Jumpstart. So it's pulsing AoE. During this, you can see the debuff here. It's taking extra damage. Summon some drones, and it restarts the phase. So that's the fight. Also, after Jumpstart, it'll drop some puddles on the ground that are growing, so you kind of have to fight the boss in a different spot than you fought it last time. Make sure you're focusing ads as much as possible or doing as much AoE as possible in that phase, basically, is the main takeaway from this boss. Next, you have to fight this Blood Warper. Earlier in PTR, there were some tactics that where you could skip this Blood Warper with. However, they changed it. But if you click on this, then you always pull the Blood Warper. The reason you have to click on this is if you can see up here, weapons, stockpiles, pilfered, 0 out of 5. You need to hit 5 of these, otherwise you cannot progress the dungeon. Very similar to Brackenhide. However, it is a little bit different from Brackenhide because you have until the first 2 bosses are dead to click all of these. Also, one of them is free because it's right behind the second boss. So anyway, we have to fight this Blood Warper. So after the boss, we go to the Blood Warper. It's the same mob as before. The Blood Warper is also near these soldiers, which only hit the tank. So the inspectors will jump behind a random person and start casting Surprise Inspection. The frontal. It does not recast if you stop it. So ideally, you're stopping these, especially when it overlaps with Warp Blood, so that your healer can stand still and cast during the Warp Blood. So that's this. Let's pull. After the end, you click on the cache. The next pull we do is, you don't have to do this, by the way, in a pug. So I would pull 2 soldiers plus all the loader bots into this. You could just do like the soldiers and the loader bots separately and then do this pull if you're worried. So this pull features some new mobs, which is the snipers. They will shoot a random person with snipe, and they also have trick shot, which is a cast which you can interrupt, and it's also at a random person. This snipe has been nerfed ever since this video came out, so it doesn't do as much damage, but still be a little bit scared of it. These loader bots, as you can see, they're casting Wind Up, fixating a random person. They slowly move towards that person, so just don't get run over by them. You can also stun them, which stops their cast. In this pull, I would say focusing a sniper is more important than any other mob. Once this pull's done, we're gonna click the cache and move on. By the way, you can see how we kind of progress through the dungeon. You can go through the other way. I'll talk about it as we get like to the end. We're moving down here to this area, which has another weapons cache. Doing another pull. So in this pull, there's two new mobs. There's the Surveyor and the Architect. So the Surveyor is very similar to the Corpse Collectors in Necrotic Wake. He has easy throw dynamite, which is just throw flesh. Except he casts it on a cooldown. It doesn't like spam cast it. And he also has Surveying Beam, which isn't quite like Drain Fluids because it doesn't stun you, but it basically needs to be interrupted because it's doing a lot of damage and it's also putting puddles on the ground. You want to be interrupting this as much as possible, and be very careful if you're targeted by the dynamite. Also in this pull is the Architect, who's standing on scaffolding. So while he's on the scaffolding, he takes reduced damage, and he's also like not even in melee range. So you have to hit the scaffolding and then hit the Architect after the scaffolding dies. He's also casting Nail Gun, which is weird because it says it's targeting the tank, but actually it goes on random people in the group and it roots them. You can dwarf the root, by the way, if it's you're in like a weird situation. Also, there's these Bombshell Crabs. When they're basically just all tank hitting mobs. When they die, they do a bursting stack, which doesn't hurt that much. That's this pull. Decent amount going on, but realistically, just don't die to the first Surveyor and kill the scaffolding and you'll be fine. We also pull in some divers from the river here. Divers have two abilities. One is Harpoon, which is interruptible. If it goes off, it pulls you to them and puts a bleed. They also have another ability which will recast even if you stop it, which is called Plant C4 Charge. C4 Charge. You can see these little bombs here. Do not walk on these, you will probably die. They're not as bad as the Motherlode Mines, but if you walk on them, they do like a pretty big explosion and knock up everyone that's near them. We're also pulling this pretty aggressively. You don't need to pull this big. You can just do like no Architect in the first pull, then Architect plus like 2 Harpooners, and then basically there's also a stockpile here, so make sure you click that. So the next pull is kind of complicated, so we want to pulling this pack into this pack. And we really want to avoid the Sniper Patrol. If you do end up pulling the Sniper Patrol, by the way, make sure you don't pull anything else. The Sniper Patrol is extremely dangerous. That's why we're avoiding it. I wouldn't do what I'm doing here. But yeah, I tag this pack and go down here. We can avoid the Sniper Patrol. These Demolitionists have 2 casts. So one is RPGG, which is what you can see. It drops all these swirlies everywhere. A lot of area denial. And they also cast Reload. So if they don't have an RPGG, they'll cast Reload. If you stop Reload, they will recast it. And Reload is a 7-second cast. So you can like stop it all the way at the end. By the way, if you have a DK, you can grip, and it's really useful here. I believe the Reload RPGG has like infinite range. So if they cast it and you like run across the map, then they can just start spamming you from all the way across the map. Make sure you do finish them off. Right after that, we're going to avoid the Sniper Patrol. By the way, this is like pretty close to the start of the dungeon. If you can see these stairs here, this is exactly where we started. You can choose to play the dungeon like going this way around the map instead of the way that I chose. We just kind of chose to go that way because we like to play all the hyenas. Okay, so we did actually accidentally pull the Sniper Patrol, so we're just going to kill it. Ideally, you don't pull this, but I think a lot of pugs, especially earlier in the season, are going to ninja pull this. All right, next we go into this area. So a lot of people do this as the first pull of the dungeon. We're doing it a bit later. It's next to a stockpile, so you do have to do this dungeon, and we are going to fight the Shreddinator for the first time with this pull, this route. So he has 2 casts. One is Shredation. At the end of the cast, wherever you're standing, the ground will be covered in saw blades. So you can see, boom, covered in saw blades. You don't want to stand in these or you'll die. You basically have to pre-move or you get ticked. Also, of note, when you're tanking this, every other Shredation, it's either every other or every third, not sure, will be followed by a flamethrower, so you want to backstep it to point the flamethrower. It's a frontal on you, and then you move away from it. And that's this mob, the Shreddinator. He also melee's kind of hard, but it shouldn't be that big a deal as long as you are pushing your buttons as a tank. All right, so that's this mob, and this is the last required cache. As you can see, we're at 4 out of 5 caches, and the last one's behind the boss. We're crossing the river here to go to the second boss. I decided to pull some divers into this pull because otherwise the pull is very easy. We're pulling divers plus the Architect. This is all mobs we've seen before. Some people will like to kill the scaffolding and move into the next pull. However, the next pull, in my opinion, is extremely dangerous, so I prefer not to do that. I prefer to just pull some Harpooners into this pull and call it a day. All the same mobs here, just kill the scaffolding and then kill the Architect, and that's it. And kick some Harpoons. So this next pull features 2 Surveyors and an Architect, which is 3 mobs total that can target the group. Very dangerous in high keys. In low pugs, where you're just farming gear, it should be fine, honestly. Same mobs, though. You just want to focus down the scaffolding. Make sure you interrupt Surveyors. And especially in this pull, if you're targeted by easy throw dynamite, be very careful. Okay, so next we're gonna go into the double Shreddinator pull. By the way, this pull is skippable. If you have a rescue, you can like rescue someone on a mount from here to here, or if you have gateway, you can escape this way. But I'm deciding to pull it here. All the same mobs that we've seen before. The only difference is that there's 2 Shreddinators, so there's going to be twice the Saw Blades and twice the Flamethrowers. It is very chaotic for melee, so just be super careful as a melee. Also watch where you're standing here. I think Ninja over here. I would say in general, try to not overmove as a tank, because as you see, as I'm doing right now, since I'm jumping around holding aggro, the pull is, or trying to get aggro, the pull is becoming very chaotic. Now once it's all together though, I'm trying to keep my movements like smaller, so that the mobs stay relatively stacked, and the Saw Blades also drop like in the same spot, so we can just like drop and move, etc. In general, I would try to not pull 2 of these Surveyors too with this pull. There's like 1 pack over here you can just not pull if you're doing it. But yeah, this pull is very tough. I'll be ready for a challenges. If you want the easy mode, you can, instead of walking up here, you can pull the 2 Shreddinators all the way down the stairs and fight them over here. There's no chance of ninja pulling. There's also no group damage going out. It's all avoidable mechanics. So that is another way to play this. All right, on to the second boss. So this boss is a duo. They do not share health. One of them has more health than the other. Bront has more health. In my opinion, though, if you are like a strong tank, it's kind of a better strategy to focus down Kiza, because Kiza does all the group damage. So the main mechanic of this fight is that every phase she's going to drop 4 bombs. As you can see, here are the 4 bombs. And to get rid of these 4 bombs, you have 1 Dispel. You can see the Dispel just went on our Priest here. Just putting the Dispel on the Priest, boom, and you can Dispel it, and it knocks the bomb out. It's actually more than 4 bombs, but I think it's 6 bombs or something. So, and then Bront is going to do 3 barreling charges. So he's going to pick 3 people in a row with barreling charge, and if they hit the bomb, then it knocks the bomb away. The last bomb is always on the tank. So you charge 1, is the second one on someone random. Be ready to aim these, by the way. So if you're like a range, generally just try to stand near the bombs. This is the 3rd charge. And then after the 3rd charge, she puts out another debuff. And you need to use that debuff to clear the last bomb, or to clear bombs. If you've done 3 charges and all the debuffs, by the way, which we just did, and you miss a bomb, then every single bomb that's still there blows up. You cannot soak the bombs, by the way, as you just tried to do. It blows up, it does a decent amount of damage, and puts a dot on us. Obviously, we are like full gear and into 12, so we're not taking that much damage, but if you're not fully geared, then this could easily kill you. Make sure we do the bombs properly. After that, generally, you want to drag the bosses together. If there's like a bomb very close to Kiza, you can drag him next to that bomb so the charge automatically hits it. But then the fight basically just repeats. So it's a bunch of bombs. You have 2 dispels and 3 charges to hit all the bombs, and the 3rd charge is always on the tank. Those are the key rules to remember. There is also random damage going out, by the way. So the quick shot from Kiza does a lot of damage. Moderate damage, I'd say. And the debuff actually does quite a bit of damage. So you really want to be positioned on top of a bomb already when you get the debuff, so your healer can insta-dispel it. Also, when you have the debuff, if you get quick shot, that can be a dangerous one-shot. The wallop that he does is basically a tank frontal. It does a decent amount of damage, but as long as you have mitigation, you're fine. Bront is actually dying really fast in this video. So whenever one of them dies, the other one enrages. They get a stacking buff, which increases their damage by 20% damage per stack. It's like 1 stack every 2 seconds or something. And they keep repeating their skill. So Kiza just keeps quick shotting, which can quickly become very lethal if Bront dies first. If Kiza dies first, then Bront will spam cast Wallop. So if you are able to survive that, then it's kind of okay if you kill Kiza first. Also, if he's in a cast sequence, then he won't go into the Wallop sequence yet. So he's charging, and then he just dies. One thing, very important, by the way, after this boss dies, there are 2 things you need to do. So number 1, notice how we're at 4 out of 5 kill for caches. You need to click the last cache. Also, as I pan my camera, there is a weapon here on the ground. Someone needs to click this and then use their extra action button, which will fire at a Zeppelin that is like in the air here. And then the Zeppelin will blow up and there won't be any like release on there won't be any like spotlights in the river. This is very important because the next boss fight is in the river and you don't want to be fighting spotlights during the boss fight. Next we'll fight any remaining divers plus some kelps. You can, if you're doing like a weekly key and not like an organized group, just fight the divers first and then get the kelps, or any order you want. These kelps, by the way, are in 2 groups of 3, so you can also split it up that way if you want. We just pull them all together. The divers we've already fought. They do the harpoon and the C4M charge. Ideally, in my opinion, in this pull, you'd be using your interrupts on the divers and doing AoE stops for the kelps. There's a C4M charge. So the kelps have 2 abilities. One is jettison kelp and one is restorative algae. So the algae is actually purgeable. It puts a a hot and ally. I don't think it puts it on itself, it puts it on ally. And Jettison Kelp is basically just spamming AoE damage on the group. If you don't have AoE stuffs, pulling all of these together might be scary. You can just do like 3 kelps and then do RP and then 3 kelps again. That's perfectly fine. Obviously it's PTR, so we're pulling them all together. Once you deal with that pull, or even before you deal with that pull, there is the bombs here. Once you've done like the 5 pilfered caches, this appears. You can click on it to start the RP and spawn the boss. We spawn Swamp Face. Swamp Face is actually probably one of the hardest heal checks in the season. They did recently nerf him 15% on all healing check abilities, so that's good. While you're fighting him, your tank is going to be getting hit by Sludge Claws. It's 1 every 30 seconds, by the way, so if you have like a tank buster or mitigation every minute, then that's fine. And he's also linking people in a group. As you can see, all 4 members of the party have this Vine debuff on them. You can see our Shaman and Boomy are linked, and our Mage and Priest are linked. If you break the link, then you get pulled towards the middle, and I think you take some, like, extra tick of damage. And also, obviously, he does this move called Mudslide, which is designed to split your group up. And then if you like have 1 person on this side, 1 person on this side, then you get pulled together and break in the middle. Before you pull this boss, it's important to just specify a direction. The first direction that everyone decided on in PTR is left, so hopefully everyone just goes left on live. If you want to go right, whatever, just make sure it's all specified before you pull the boss. Whatever you specify, by the way, usually only applies to Mudslide. So after Mudslide, there is another heal check. So he's casting Awaken the Swamp. These puddles, by the way, even though they're kind of hard to see, will kill you if you stand on them, so don't stand on them. While he's casting this, these puddles are going to be shooting stuff at you. This is where you would assign your healer cooldowns, by the way. And you're taking extra ticking damage on top of the vines that you already have on you. This is massive damage. Make sure you use healing cooldowns and personals on that. After that, he Sludge Claws the tank again. Then you have a very brief break. Actually, no break at all. And then you get vines again. So you're basically taking ticking damage from vines the whole time. And during Awaken the Swamp, you're taking even more extra damage. And you also need to dodge everything. So this boss is pretty tough. I imagine it will check a lot of groups. Make sure you have lust for it, I would say, in most pugs. And hopefully some B-reses, and be ready to play well defensively. Alright, so that is this boss. Next, we're going to show a skip that you can do. So, see a bunch of these mobs on the bridge. Just pan our camera away. All these mobs. Try to walk here. A giant fish called Bubbles will stomp on them, and it's basically a mini boss that you fight. This route skips Bubbles. You can walk in the water here if you have like water walking or Path of Frost or something, or if you're a Demon Hunter, you can double jump through it. Don't aggro these bottom feeders, by the way. They are very deadly. Someone ninja pulled here. These aren't supposed to early pull. This guy is basically taking a nap at the top of the stairs. Usually, you would just walk up here, wait for everyone, then walk up the stairs, but somehow someone pulled him early, so it is what it is in this video. In this pack, also, there's the Jump Starter, which is the main big mob. He's spam pulsing AoE, doing a tank hit, and also doing the swirlies. Its AoE, honestly, is not that crazy, I would say. And there's only 1 of them. As long as you don't stand in anything, most healers should be able to take care of it. Here's also this Electrician, which is spamming Lightning Bolt, doing rotation ideally. And it's also putting out a debuff, which your healer must dispel, which is, you can hear the overcharge. If this is not dispelled by either your healer or a dwarf or something, then it will stun you at the end. So make sure this is getting dispelled. If you're able to fight Bubbles, by the way, you can skip all this process and just fight Bubbles and move on. But Bubbles is a very, very hard mob. It did recently get nerfed, but I see it, like, if you've just fought the Swamp Face, you're probably not going to have that many cooldowns. Then you fight Bubbles, which is another massive heal check, so it could be very difficult. This just shows like an option to skip. If you do fight Bubbles, I recommend fighting him in like a triangle formation. So he drops Bubbles on the ground. You drop it once, then you move, then you drop it again, then you move. Once you drop twice, the original ones will go away, so you can just move back. Next, we just do this pull. These Electricians are very scary since there's 2 of them. They're going to be spam casting Lightning Bolt, and they also put out 2 debuffs that need to be dispelled. You're on top of those. I recommend not pulling this, by the way, with any other mobs. These mobs are already quite scary. Just 2 Electricians by themselves. Once we dispatch those, we're going to do a skip here since we have so much count. You need to dip into this little alcove, otherwise you will face pull Jump Starter, and he cannot be CC'd or Mind Soothed. So we're dipping into the alcove here, and we're also Mind Soothing or imprisoning both of these Electricians. If you do not have these tools, just fight the pack. It's not that bad. Onward to the last pull, the dungeon, which is double Jump Starter. So this pull is quite difficult. Make sure you have cooldowns ready, make sure you have healing cooldowns ready, and make sure you're ready to push your personals, and make sure especially that you do not die to the first swirlies of the pull, which happen 2 seconds in. A lot of people die to these. Do not die to these. The swirlies hit very quickly. All right. After this heal check pull, by the way, it's going to be very difficult, as we already mentioned. Also, you probably can't lust both Swamp Face and this pull, so I don't know how you're going to deal with this. lust wise or cooldown wise. We get to the last boss. Very important. This last boss does AoE damage on pull. As soon as he finishes turbocharge cast, he's going to be pulsing AoE for 10 seconds, and he's going to be shooting all these lines. So this is another heal check. After the turbocharge, he does a tank hit called Thunder Punch. Also, you'll note all of these puddles spawning. These puddles are very important for a later mechanic, which is the Spark Fixate. However, if you walk over a puddle earlier than that with an electrocuted debuff on you, then you will turn this puddle into an electrocuted puddle, and you cannot use it for Sparks later. So it's very important to watch out for that. So this Thunder Punch is the first thing that can give you an electrocuted debuff. It does a lot of damage, by the way. Watch out. Make sure you have a cooldown ready. For specifically Vengeance Demon Hunter, you should probably delay your first brand of the fight to the first Thunder Punch so that you have one for every other Thunder Punch. You can just Feldever meta the other one of the fight. So you notice how it puts a debuff on me. This debuff does crazy damage, but also if I walk over a puddle with this debuff, then it will change the puddle to an electrified puddle. We don't want that. Also, I'm dying in at 12, by the way, to this Thunder Punch. The other thing that can electrocute these puddles incorrectly is Giga Zap. So he targets 2 people with Giga Zap with circles around them. So you don't want this circle to hit allies, and you also don't want it to hit a puddle. Also, you can notice he puts a debuff on this mage, so the mage has a debuff for 8 more seconds. If you walk over a water puddle with this debuff, you'll get electrocuted, and you'll get stunned, and you'll also remove the puddle again. The idea is to conserve water puddles here. Don't want to walk over any of these puddles when you have the electrocuted debuff. After these 2 mechanics, he casts Leaping Spark, so you'll see this spark that's fixated on you. Now this is where you want to walk over the puddle with the spark. So you lure the spark over the puddle. By the way, if you are in the puddle, when the spark hits the puddle, you will get stunned and probably die if you're the tank, so don't do that. You want to be on the other side of the puddle, let the spark walk in, the spark transforms the puddle into an electrified puddle, and that's that. If the puddle is already electrified, you cannot do this. You need to find a puddle that is not electrified. If you have a stun immunity like Bubble, IBF, or AMS, you can just soak your spark too. After that, he does his next tank hit, which is Thunder Punch. Does a lot of damage, obviously, as we mentioned before. And then the last 2 Giga Zaps of the phase. So these 2 Giga Zaps are the quote-unquote harder Giga Zaps because they will overlap with the AoE. He puts a dot out on people, then he's going to jump to the middle, and the phase basically resets here. He's going to remove all the puddles, and he's going to do the same AoE hit that he was doing at the start. So if you had like a dot that was ticking you, it falls off just as the AoE starts, but you're probably not going to be full health when the AoE starts, so it's very scary. He does Turbocharge, which is AoE damage. Then it should reset all the puddles here. Boom, yeah, so there's all the electric puddles go away, some rocks fall, they'll stand in them, also some new water puddles spawn, and the phase basically completely resets. Fight the boss again. So that is this boss, and that is going to be the quick guide for Floodgate. I said quick, but it's actually been 3 minutes, so yeah. Alright, thanks for watching.